There's one thing that game developers dread.
I was scared to admit it.
I am very good at making games that aren't fun.
Creating a game that is not fun.
This game has never been fun.
As a game developer, I've always had trouble making a fun game. It's a problem that's plagued me since I was in high school. I've made games with deep stories, interesting puzzles, creative mechanics, but I haven't been able to make a game that I thought was fun. And I want to fix that with my new game, Blood and Pixels. This video is going to be broken into two parts. The first part's going to show where I'm going to find the fun for my game, and the second part's going to be me actually showing off my game. So, I hope you guys are ready. Let's dive right into it. I'm using this game as a bit of a study. I think it's a fairly simple concept, but all the best games are. I believe this idea has the groundworks to make a really fun game. I think the three most important factors in making a fun game are challenging the player, giving the player a sense of accomplishment, and most importantly to me, is encouraging social interaction that you can get, whether with friends, family, or even strangers. So with these in mind, let's go over three games that not only inspired Blood and Pixels, but these are games that I also believe accomplish all these fun factors. The first game is Castle Crashers. This game has an unlimited amount of charm. It's probably one of my favorite games of all time. The player is constantly being challenged by different enemies and bosses throughout the game. The player also learns new combos and upgrades their stats as they progress, so the game is always changing in some way. The game will throw like 15 enemies at you at once, knowing that there's only one or two players. This not only forces the player to get better at the game, but it gives the players a challenge. A wall they have to overcome. In terms of a sense of accomplishment, I mean, there's this. And this is awesome. A little gory, but hey, that's partly what makes this game so charming. There's also the upgrading stats and leveling up and everything, but yeah, this is my favorite part. For the last factor, the social interaction, Castle Crashers has a bunch of modes you can play with other people, but my main focus was on the story mode. You can play it via couch co-op, Steam Remote Play, or even online multiplayer. Or you could do all at once. It's a win-win-win. If you have a friend who wants to play the game, you can play it with them. And if you can't, then you're not even trying. The next game is Brawlhalla. Old friends tried getting me into this game and I never quite got it. Until one day, when me and my girlfriend started playing against each other. It all clicked. Now, she's played games here and there, a bit of Fortnite, all of It Takes Two, and all of my past failed games, but I wouldn't quite classify her as a gamer. Not yet at least. But when we started playing this game, we had so much fun. For the challenge, we had each other. We've already lost a few nights just playing, seeing who we like and dislike playing as or playing against. For the sense of accomplishment, we had each other. You know what they say, beating your significant other in video games, then rubbing it in their face is the best relationship builder. Lastly, the social interaction. Yeah, I don't think I need to explain that one. An added bonus, this game was fairly easy for both of us to pick up. I have my history playing fighting games, but my girlfriend hadn't played a bunch before. She was able to pick up the game and we were actually able to compete against each other really quickly. I don't know if that says more about me or her. The game was more fun because we could both compete. There was no one-sided domination. There was a lot of spamming in the beginning, and I think that's a problem I can tackle. I'll go a bit more in depth on that later. The last game, at least that I'll specifically mention, is Dive Kick. Now, Dive Kick's challenge, sense of accomplishment, and social interaction are all basically the same as Brawlhalla's, minus the girlfriend part. She hasn't played Dive Kick. But, as an inspiration for Blood and Pixels, Dive Kick pointed out a gaping hole in the fighting game industry that still isn't fully patched. If I wanted to play, say, Mortal Kombat with a non-gamer, they would have a really hard time. Fighting games as a genre are very overwhelming. The initial learning curve is more like a learning wall. In Dive Kick, the fighting game gets simplified into a dive and a kick button. That's it. I don't think Blood and Pixels should be that simple, but I think the happy medium is going to be between Brawlhalla and Dive Kick. I think Blood and Pixels should be open to newbies. I see this as a fun game people play at like a party or something. Like Mario Kart. Or Mario Party. So maybe I can actually show you my game now. You get my thought process, you've seen my inspirations. Now let me show you my vision. I'm going to take you all the way back to the Colosseum. And now I look like Steve from Blue's Clues watched Gladiator 2. Anyways, maybe I can explain how Blood and Pixels actually works. So to play Blood and Pixels, the player is going to need a thumbstick and 2 buttons. That's all. If the player really wanted to, they could play with an NES controller. I wish I could say the same, but I'm actually in ancient Rome right now. There's the typical fighting game movements. The left thumbstick will move you left and right. However, I did take some inspiration from Castle Crashers and the brawling genre as a whole. If the player moves the thumbstick up and down, the player moves backwards and forwards. That's right, this game is 3-dimensional. That's like a whole other dimension of gameplay. Thank you. Thank you. Now, about the 2-button combat system, here's what I came up with. If you don't know, there's a bunch of different types of gladiators. There's the Myrmilos, the Thracians, the Retiariuses, and even more. In Blood and Pixels, before each match, you'll get a chance to choose which gladiator you want to play as. It is a fighting game after all. Each gladiator will have one universal attack button. When you press down the button, the gladiator will start charging his attack. The second you release it, they will release their sword as well. The longer you hold down the attack button, the stronger the swing your gladiator will have. If you're spamming the button over and over again, your gladiator ends up doing little to no damage. If you're smart and you hold the button for like a second, your gladiator will hit harder. So if you hit your opponent, you can remove like almost half of his health. It's a high risk, high reward because of course while you're charging up your swing, your opponent can hit you. I really like this idea because one thing that I always lost to in Smash Bros. And fighting games is spammers. Always spamming random buttons or random attacks, and this way you have to actually think about when you're going to swing your sword and if you want to charge it up or not. Each gladiator, however, will have a different range. This means if you're playing a gladiator like the Retiarius, who uses a trident by the way, you're going to have a longer range than a gladiator like the Provocator, who uses a gladius. A gladius is a really short and stubby sword. A trident is a really long and not stubby sword. Well, it's not a sword, it's like a fisherman's tool or something, I think. Honestly, I don't know where tridents came from. However, with more range means it also takes more effort in order for your swing to actually hit. This means that the longer the range your character has, the more time it'll take to charge up your weapon to full attack. So, if you're playing someone like the Retiarius, you charging up your swipe to full attack will take you maybe 2 seconds, while the Provocator it only takes 1. On top of all this, gladiator classes vary a lot, and Blood and Pixels should represent that. That's why I present the other button. I'm calling this the special button. Each gladiator class is going to have its own different special move. The easiest way for me to show off what I mean is just to show you what I've done so far. Now I've done the usual, the basic main menu, character select screen, yada yada. Is that Castle Crashers? I hope that's temporary. I've made 2 classes, if you want to bring the first guy out. The first guy I created is called a Provocator. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, but that's how I'm going to. If I'm wrong, you can tell me, but I doubt there's any gladiator experts watching this video. Provocators are about as basic as you can get. They're based on Roman legionaries, so I guess it makes sense. The special that a Provocator has in Blood and Pixels is... that's it. He has a shield. The shield is commonly known as a scudum. Or, actually, I guess it's less commonly known as a scudum. It's called a scudum. When the Provocator has his shield out, he takes less damage. However, it also slows him down, and he can't charge up an attack. It's kind of a trade-off. I would say it's a pretty fair trade-off. And now... Oh wait, yeah, you can go now, yeah, you're good. Thanks. And now, the other, frankly, a bit more interesting gladiator class that I implemented, the aforementioned Retiarius. I don't have pixel art for him done yet, so he just looks like a Castle Crashers character. I'm taking a lot of inspiration from Castle Crashers. Now, you might not recognize the name, but I guarantee if you've seen anything about gladiators, you recognize the face. This is the weirdo who uses a net and trident instead of a sword and a shield. I know it looks like he's using one right now. Use your imagination. Now, while most gladiators were modeled after soldiers, This guy was modeled after a fisherman. With his trident and net, this guy is a ranged powerhouse. But if you can get in his inside, he's basically as good as dead. The special this guy has in Blood and Pixels is he throws a net. Like that. Now allow me to just... That's a net. I know it looks like a white sphere. It's not. It's a net. So, if an opponent gets caught in a net, they're stun locked for a second. They can't swing their sword, they can't put their shield up, they can't move. They're sitting ducks. This gives the Ready Arius a chance to get a few free hits in. I will admit, it's a little bit OP right now, but it's fun. So yeah, a little work has to be done, but at least we have a base. Hey, you're good to go. Now, the way that rounds progress in Blood and Pixels is pretty different than a normal fighting game. In typical fighting games, the first round you fight the opponent, and then in the second round you get your health back, and then you fight the opponent. And that's basically it. I think we can have a little more fun here. Gladiators actually didn't kill each other as much as people think. The point of a gladiator was actually to put on a show, to entertain the masses. The notorious thumbs up, thumbs down method was usually deciding whether or not a gladiator put on a show or they didn't. So, in order to replicate that, in Blood and Pixels you can have 1 to 3 rounds. Depending on how much damage the losing gladiator does to the winning gladiator, that affects the chances that they'll be able to play another round. So, if the Caesar thinks that you did put on a good show, the fight continues. Another round. But if you put on a bad show, game over. Now, you may have noticed that the environment behind me is 3D, yet all the characters that we've met so far are 2D pixel art. So, why did I choose this art style? Well, I like the ability to have a 3D environment. I'm going to be utilizing the Unreal Marketplace about as much as I can over the course of this project. Having a 3D environment makes it a lot easier for me to change the background of the level. I can use and mix and match a bunch of different 3D assets. 3D assets tend to mix and match a lot better than 2D assets do. I also wanted to keep my characters 2D. Having my characters be in 2D lets me fully animate them about as much as I can. And I also really like the pixel art style. I want this game to remind people of old games, and what better way to do that than pixel art, the way that video games started. So, there we go. 1 month of Blood and Pixels. I'm really excited to see what I could get done these next few months. This game has the ability to be fun. I can see it. I just need to make it online multiplayer, which is notoriously very easy. So, there we go. If you want, like and subscribe, and if you know someone who could get me out of Rome, that would be very appreciated. And yeah, I'll see you next week, or next month, or next year, or I'll see you sometime. Cool. Bye.